Our next stop is in the US, where activists in Texas have won an amazing victory in the struggle to hold Formosa accountable with a $50 million legal settlement. But the struggle goes on. Here to tell us about it is our next local guide, Diane Wilson, an American environmental activist, an anti-war activist, and an author. She began a campaign against Formosa Plastics, a facility near her hometown, with tactics including several hunger strikes and sinking her own boat to draw attention to the matter. In 2019, she was a plaintiff to a suit, Waterkeeper versus Formosa, against Formosa Plastics for violations of the Clean Water Act, resulting in discharges of pollution along the Texas coast. Along with other volunteers, she collected millions of nurdles that served as evidence in the case. In other words, she won. Take it away, Miss Diane Wilson.
Thank you very much. I am a fourth generation fisherwoman, shrimp boat captain. I have lived 130 years in this area, so you can understand why I have such a passion for the Bay and have fought Formosa for 30 years to keep them from destroying our Bay and the fishermen and their way of life. When I first became aware of Formosa, Formosa was actually here in 1981, and they were a tiny plant, but even as a tiny plant, I think 100 workers at the time, they were known for pushing production. If anything Formosa is known for is not only that is a bit cheap, but they push production. And even with that 100 worker plant, at the end of their term in that body of water, the Texas Water Commission fined them the largest fine they had and said they had totally changed the ecosystem in that body of water. It was no longer a freshwater body of water. It was narrow salt water. And so what did they do? They did a $3 billion expansion. They started in 1989. It was the largest expansion Texas had ever had. They pretty much gave Formosa everything like they're trying to do in Louisiana. And basically, they put their waste stream into an estuary in Lavaca Bay where the fish and the crabs and the whole ecosystem, the cradle of life for our fishermen. And when Formosa started, the Chairman Wong, he loved to say that it was the jewel of the Texas coast. I saw that a number of times. I saw where they were telling Taiwan this was a Texas jewel. Well, I'll have you to know it was not a Texas jewel. And in 1998, they had an explosion. It injured 26 workers. It was heard 35 miles away. It was a EDC or ethylene dichloride leak, and we still have groundwater contamination from Formosa on that. A short time later, there were 2 workers found drowned, dead, in a barge full of ethylene dichloride, one of Formosa's chemicals of choice. A few years later, there was another explosion. It burned for 5 days, and they had to evacuate the school. They had to shelter in place, and this is the community that started out 1,400 people, and now it's down to 700 because the community wanted out. And Formosa bought a large part of the community out, so their community in there. The school isn't there. Formosa now owns the elementary school, and it's their learning center. And and not only that, Formosa, when they put their discharge into Lavaca Bay, they began a 26 years of violating their permit and putting plastic pollution into the bay. And I learned firsthand about this from the workers in the plant. You would think a shrimper wouldn't have anything in common with workers, but apparently if the workers are alarmed about what is going on, they're alarmed about safety, they're alarmed about the environmental regulations and workers were just like me. They cared about the bay. So I had this worker telling me about all the plastics that were in the bay, and they were all over the plant. They were in the ditches, they were in the wastewater system, they were in the railway yards. And so for the next 2.5 years, me and a few workers from that, I might say farmer workers, because they were either injured workers or they were whistleblowers, we started collecting evidence of Formosa's plastic pollution, because one, Formosa wouldn't admit it. The community officials would not get involved because they were hired by Formosa. We couldn't go to the state agencies. We couldn't go to the EPA. We couldn't go to OSHA. And so we started collecting on our own evidence. We covered a 20-mile area. We waded out in the water. Eventually, I got a kayak and I started going into every single one of Formosa's outfalls. And in 2.5 years, we collected 2,500 samples. We had 8,000 videos and photographs of these violations. And, we were a very small group. We had no money, no support. But we were fortunate to get a legal aid group of lawyers, and they agreed to take us on. And we had the evidence. We had the experts. Formosa had no defense. It's just like in Vietnam and Taiwan. Formosa has no defense on what they do. And so, believe it or not, we won the lawsuit, and the federal judge said Formosa was a serial polluter, that they had enormous violations. Matter of fact, I believe they almost had over 2,000 violations. And not only were they violating the law, they never reported a single violation. And so it was after that trial that Formosa decided they were going to sit and settle with us, because I think they were afraid what the judge was going to fine them for 2,000 violations, $50,000 a day. And what do you get if you don't even report it? And so we got zero discharge of plastics, and we got a cleanup, and we got enforcement. So it's not the state that is enforcing them. It is a monitor we mutually agreed upon. And when Formosa violates their wastewater permit on the pellets, it's $20,000 a day and every body of water. And so we are still very much involved in trying to do the settlement and do it right and make sure Formosa doesn't violate. And even now I'm on this webinar, and if I have to tell the people in St. James anything, the only thing I regret is I did not try hard enough to stop them. So do not let them in.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Diane. What a testament to what we can do if we come together and we bring that pressure, right, y'all? At this time, I'd like to go ahead and ask a couple questions, because we do have quite a few of you guys sent some stuff in. So let's do that. And I see in the chat, yeah, thanks again, Diane, for sharing that. That story is always so compelling, and it resonates with folks, and it gives us hope. So we appreciate you. And even when I hear you say you didn't fight enough, you set the foundation for us. We just have to continue the journey. So we're going to do that starting tonight. Our first question, and it can be from any of the panelists, you guys, if you want to just unmute. What actions can we do together to make Formosa Board of Directors care? What can we do to stop Formosa's actions? Better yet, take this company down. And that sounds about right. Anyone who have spoken thus far, or even Sharon, if you want to hop in there, and I'll repeat the question: what actions can we do together to make Formosa Board of Directors care? What can we do to stop Formosa's actions? Better yet, can we take them down? And how do we do that?
Is Noe answering?
Take it away, Diane.
I'll tell you one thing. They do not like bad press. Get in their face. You get in their face and you and make sure you got your research, you have your information. And all I know that is Formosa really does not like violations. You know, as the lady before said, they fight every violation. That's because they don't like them. And a media blitz, a media blitz. That's one thing.
It's me, Nancy. I think that as a consumer, we can find any product that's produced by Formosa and just don't use them, don't buy them. So, you know, that will, you know, give them an answer that nobody like the way they do business. So that is another solution. Yes.
And I don't know how to make their board of directors care, honestly. But in Taiwan, groups have been, for example, like protesting in front of their shareholder meetings and also pressuring the government, because the government, like the petrochemical industry is so massive and the government is kind of also like involved in the whole thing. Like obviously Formosa Plastics is not doing what they should do to prevent like those incidents, but the government is also kind of like not doing their part to prevent them. So at least the groups in Taiwan are also pressuring the governments to like strengthen the laws and regulations and like transparencies. So that's what I can share, that what folks on the ground are doing.
Awesome, wonderful answers. So we'll move on to the second question, and y'all can stay right there. So given the wide reach of Formosa and the trail of pollution and environmental destruction that they have created, what do you see are some opportunities for local communities that you are advocating for to join efforts and build solidarity transnationally? And so once again, given the wide reach of Formosa, the trail of pollution, environmental destruction, what do you see are some local opportunities for folks to be able to plug in and join efforts transnationally?
Well, this is Diane again. Hate to keep butting in here, but I do know it's extremely important for small local groups who do not, and usually if you're around Formosa, it's hard to get support. It's hard to get media. People are really intimidated by Formosa. So if you can reach out to other, like in Texas, other states, like the ones in Delaware, like the ones in Louisiana, the one that was in Illinois. And I know I got a long time ago an opportunity to go to Taiwan, and that experience was the best thing that ever happened to me. And so it gave this solidarity between this little small county in Texas all the way to Taiwan. And, you know, and 30 years later, I still have it. So it's very, very important. And I think it's Formosa is well aware of it.